Hey guys, welcome back. So I am going to be doing one of the most exciting videos at the beginning of every year, and that is talking about the best books I read last year. So yeah, I read 120 books, I think. Let me double check on my Goodreads. It was 123 books actually. And the funniest thing is my favorite book of the year was the very last book I read, which is why I don't do these videos in the month of December, because there's always a chance that you come across your favorite book after you've already filmed the video. So that's why you're getting these videos from me in January, because especially because of this year, my favorite book was the last book that I read. So I've not organized my favorite books of 2024 in any kind of order. I'm just gonna go with, on Goodreads, I have a shelf every year where as the year progresses, I slowly put on what I think might be part of my top 10. And I have a folder for every year called like 2023's top 10, 2024's top 10. I've now started 2025's top 10. So yes, you can go into Goodreads and you can look through all of my other bookshelves and see what my top 10s were from previous years. Today I am just going to go to that list from 2024 and let you know what my favorites are. So I read The 13 and a Half Lives of Captain Blue Bear. This is such a precious novel. I love this so much. Thankfully, my friend Chantel, you guys know her here as Chantel Reads All Day, I think she DNF'd this book. She wasn't feeling it. And then I was just like, I loved it. And so she gave it to me, you guys. That's so kind of her. So this is definitely one in my top 10. It's a middle grade, but there's a lot of concepts and vocabulary that are definitely above middle grade. Because our main character, Blue Bear, he kind of just appears in the world, and these three little mini pirates find him and they decide to start raising him, but then as he grows, he outgrows the pirate ship, so they have to abandon him. And he essentially, the 13 and a half lives part is essentially, I guess you could say, 13 and a half adventures of Captain Blue Bear. Because throughout this huge book, it is like 700 pages with illustrations included. It just talks about all of his adventures, and they're wacky and they're nonsensical, and I don't think there's much for like a moral message or anything. There's nothing for kids to really learn from this book. It's just fun nonsense, and that is the kind of middle grade I love. So this is definitely in my top 10. The next one I don't actually own a copy of, but it is Mortal Queens by Victoria McCombs. I don't really know how to pronounce it. At first, when I first read this book, I gave it a 5-star. I was a little bit desperate at that point to have a 5-star. So as it sat with me a little bit, it kind of reduced itself to a 4.5 star, but I really enjoyed it nonetheless. And it is about, in this fantastical world, I love fantasy, you guys, in this world, a young woman is chosen to move to the Fae Kingdom and become a queen. Now, in the world where the people live, they don't really know anything about this Fae Kingdom other than it's meant to be like this elite place where like you really want your child to be chosen to be this Fae Queen, and they choose one every year, and it's really a sign of like prestige or upper class if your child is chosen. So it's really something highly valued in this society. So our main character does end up getting chosen. So we actually, along with her, get to discover what is going on in the Fae Kingdom? Why do the regular people not get to know anything about the Fae Kingdom? They have no contact with them, so once that their daughter is chosen and moves, they never see her again. So it's this big mystery, but somehow the people have built it up into a highly desired thing. So it's just us, along with our main character, like learning about the Fae Kingdom and why things are done the way that they're done, and perhaps all isn't as it seems. So I really enjoyed that one. And it is written by a Christian author, but I wouldn't really say there's anything necessarily Christian about it, but it is clean. It is definitely clean. The next one I want to talk to you guys about is Lumen by J.J. Fisher. So I got this one last year for Christmas and read it in January. I absolutely love the first book in this series. This is the Nightingale trilogy. The first book is Calor. This book is Lumen. So it's hard to really describe to you guys what this book is about without spoiling the first book. So instead, I will tell you a little bit about the first book. So in the series, we follow this girl. Her name is Stephanie. And she has been raised by this man who she has trusted, who has actually been manipulating her for her gift. And that is that she is able to manipulate memories and change other people's memories and alter them. And that is an incredible asset. And the man who has raised her really has taken advantage of her for his own, I guess, advancement in society. So she leaves when she realizes, and this is all in the first book, and then she comes across Dorian, and then later on she comes across Cass. And so there is magic in this world, as far as like having abilities and things, and a bit of a sentient wolf as well. So there is that. It is written by a Christian author. The fantasy world is huge. Like there is a big map in both of the books where you can follow their journey. And the three of them end up becoming friends, and they set out to do a number of things. As you can imagine, the adventure is epic. It's written by a Christian author. There might be a little bit more Christian themes in it as well, but you really have to look. I know some people have said there's allegory in here, but I don't know. I feel like it's a bit of a stretch to say that, but it's really good though. It's a really good fantasy. I do recommend it. The next one, which was a Christmas present this year, is The Mermaid's Tale by L.E. Richmond. I'm really happy to have this book. On the back, it's blurbed by Ashley Bustamante, Wayne Thomas Batson, Jennifer A. Nielsen, so it kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of who has loved this book. So I love mermaids. I'm not sure why. Actually, maybe I do know why. Maybe it has to do with the fact that they live in the ocean, and that is me. I wish I could live in the ocean, but your girl needs air to breathe, so. This book follows our main character. What is her name again? Lachlan, which is also a very cute name. But her name is Lachlan, and she is a mermaid. However, she is the only mermaid, or one of the only mermaids in her community who actually has legs and doesn't have a tail. And so that makes her a bit of an outcast. She is bullied, she is mocked. People think there's something wrong with her. And then her nephew is born. So I really like this setting. Like a lot of YA fiction, I would say in general, but I mostly just read fantasy. So a lot of YA books have our main character being a young adult or an older teen, younger 20s, but they're a little bit on their own. And this one, she has a family, she has a sister who has a baby, like, so we see this girl is an auntie, and that like never happens like in fiction, which I think is really cool because I also was a young auntie. So I really like that part of this. So anyway, her nephew is born and he has legs, and this is a problem. So she actually, maybe I'll just leave it there and not say too much more. It is a little bit of a Little Mermaid retelling, very, very slightly. in that she does make a deal with someone she shouldn't. But I really, really like this book. I'm so glad to have this one, and the second book is out now and I need to read it. So yeah, happy to have this one. Next book on the list is Life is Hard, God is Good, Let's Dance. And that is by Brant Hansen. Brant Hansen is a, what do you call him? He's a radio personality, I think would be a pretty apt description of him. So he used to DJ on the Air One radio station in the United States. He was my favorite DJ on that station. And there's a long story, but this was like over 10 years ago. He left Air One, and then him and another person named Sherry, they had become friends on Air One, and she left Air One with him, and it's like they've never been apart since. Like everything they do in terms of like social media, and even like because they're like best friends in real life, so they do a lot of family get-togethers and stuff, like Brant's family and Sherry's family, they'll hang out all the time. But anyway, they are DJing again together on an internet radio station, which I'm not really sure what station that is, but they also have a podcast, and it's called the Brant and Sherry Oddcast, and it's my favorite podcast ever. It's so good. They are so funny. Brant has Asperger's. I don't know if he has anything else, but he definitely has Asperger's, and he talks about it a lot. So they are both Christian people, and the things that they talk about are just so relevant and hilarious. So anyway, Brant has written a number of books, and I've been collecting them over the years. I do have a couple right now, Unoffendable and Blessed Are the Misfits, on my favorite shelf. I also have his other one, The Truth About Us, not on my favorite shelf, but I do own it. This one I don't own yet, you guys, so I need to get this one. And it is basically, I think all of Brant's books are his exploration of life, really. I don't know that they necessarily hit a specific topic. Maybe the first one, Unoffendable, does kind of hit a specific topic, but they just explore life as a Christian, with a Christian point of view, meeting the world, where the world is at, and what does that look like. So I really appreciate the way he talks, the way he tells stories. I find it very accessible, and I highly recommend this book. I loved it. The next one is another Christian nonfiction, and that is A Praying Life by Paul E. Miller. I had this recommendation from Chantel, so I'm going to plug her again. And then I found this one at the thrift store, so I was like, yes, I do need this one. It's kind of damaged, but that's okay. I'm not too precious with my books. So, A Praying Life. This is such a good book for rebuilding a foundation of prayer as a regular part of your life. And honestly, I could use a reread on this, truthfully. So there's not really much more I can say about it, is that it's a book on prayer, and I really loved it and highly recommend it. The next one, which is another Christian nonfiction, and that is Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus. A Devout Muslim Encounters Christianity by Nabil Qureshi. So I heard of this book from Oshina's channel, and then I also found it at the thrift store, and because of her recommendation, I picked it up, read it, loved it, 5 stars. So Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus is Nabil Qureshi's life experience, being raised a Muslim, moving to the States, and encountering God, and really analyzing what he believes and comparing it with the Muslim faith and the Christian faith, and really taking a critical look at, well, why does one say one thing and one say another thing, and what comes out as truth, and how he discovers that God is the truth. And I loved this book so much. I looked him up after I read this book because I wanted to read more from him, and he does have more books. Unfortunately, he has passed away a number of years ago, so whatever we have from him is all we have. So yeah, I would definitely read more from Nabil Qureshi. The next one is another one I don't have, and it's another Christian nonfiction. So this one is 12 Ways Your Phone is Changing You. And there's really nothing I can say to you other than the title. Like, having your phone on you at all times, having your person accessible to the world around you at all times. It's not necessary. It disrupts your life, and this book kind of explores the different ways that having your phone on you, going to it all the time, when you're bored, go to your phone. You know, when you have a question, you don't give yourself time to think about it, you go to your phone. So yeah, it's pretty eye-opening, even though like at the fundamentals, we all know that about our phones, but to just be reminded of it in such a great way, I really highly recommend this book, and it is from a Christian perspective. So the next one I will talk to you guys about is Newlywed Games. Who would have thought a contemporary romance would make it onto my top 10 of a year, you guys? Now, there is a bit of a caveat with this one. I read this one as a young woman, so I was probably a teenager, and I loved it then. And honestly, I have looked for it at the thrift stores for so many years, and this past year I found it at the thrift store. Like, you have no idea the conversation that I was having with God in my head that day. I was like, I cannot believe you just gave me this book at a thrift store, super randomly. Thank you, Lord. Like, it was such a cool moment. Because this is a very obscure book. It's a Palisades pure romance, which they made hundreds of these. But I feel like with these kinds of books, they get a very limited run as they're a new release, and then they don't really republish them ever. So yeah, like, it is such a wild thing that I would have found this again. Anyways, in terms of romance tropes, my favorite is marriage of convenience, but I do also love the fake dating, and that is what this one is. Actually, they fake being married. So there is a whole, it's definitely a rom-com, right? Like, is it realistic? No. But is it fun? Yeah. So they have to fake dating for reasons that are not really good reasons, but they do. And then, of course, they end up falling in love as they spend more time together. So yeah, I love this one. I will reread this one again and again. Mary Davis, Newlywed Games. Read it. That one's also a Christian author. I should mention all of the books in my list here are Christian authors, except for Walter Moore's. I don't know anything about him. So then the last one is my favorite of the year, Resistance by J.L. Knight. So specifically Celestia and Reese here on BookTube have gushed over this series for so long that it was almost becoming one of those books in my head that was like, I don't even know if I want to try it anymore because my expectations are so high that there's no way it could be met, right? Like, there's no way it's as good as they keep talking about it. I don't know. So I was kind of in that frame of mind, so I couldn't find the audiobook. I don't think there are audiobooks for these. So I had to read it with my eyes. Thankfully, it is not in first person, so there's already points for it there. And I read it, and I read it slowly. I took 3 months to read this book, no joke. And not because it's hard to read. It's very easy, very accessible. This is a me problem. Like, I don't take the time to sit down and read with my eyes. I always have an audiobook going so that I can multitask, and I don't like that. I don't like that about myself. I want to read properly more often. And that's what I did with this one. And that could have lended itself to why I gave it a 5-star. But this book is so good, and the world that it's built in is so good. Like, I can only imagine where the rest of the series will go. I'm looking forward to it. I really love all of the characters. This is one of those books where up until the very end, it's essentially telling 2 different stories in the same world at the same time. It's not dual timeline. It's all in the same time, but we're following this set of twins, a boy and a girl set of twins. They're like 17 years old, I think. And because she has a certain ability where she has an exceptional ability to read people, more than normal. She can kind of read if you're being honest. She can kind of read your intent with what you're saying. So it's kind of that instinct for her, and she has been called to serve the king in the palace to help him read if people are being honest to him and whatnot. The catch is the king is forcing a belief on, I think they're moon gods or something. And she is a secret follower of Elam, which is meant to be a representation of our God. So she has a secret faith, a faith that is forbidden in this world, and now she is being called to serve the king, surrounded by people who are forcing an opposite agenda. And then on the flip side, we're also following this man who is half human, half Ryric, and Ryric is essentially an uncontrollable beast, a savage beast. So he has part of that in his blood, in his DNA, in the way he's built. He is half Ryric, and for that reason, human people hate him because all they see is the Ryric part of him, and he struggles with life. He is meant to be a slave in gladiator games until one day stuff happens and he ends up finding, or this one guy ends up finding him, and they become like a found family, and they journey together. And yes, so kind of telling both of those two stories in tandem until closer to the end where the two stories intersect. So I really liked that. The storytelling was really good. I really love J.L. Knight's storytelling. It keeps the story moving, and yet it's not like it's action, action, action. Like, I don't know how to explain that kind of storytelling where the plot is consistently moving, but you're not overwhelmed or overstimulated with like action scenes and this and this and this. It doesn't feel like it's pushed action on you, and then it also doesn't feel like you're stagnant at any point. So I really love that balance, and I'm totally jazzed to read more of this. So those are the top 10 books that I read in 2024. There was quite a bit of Christian nonfiction I found, Christian fantasy. So Christian nonfiction and Christian fantasy are my top favorites, and that's not a surprise to me, honestly. And again, I will say that I read more 5-star books than I have here. However, a lot of them were rereads, and I don't usually try to include rereads in my favorites of the year because you've already heard about them in previous years, right? So that makes sense. I will see you guys in the next video where I talk about my least favorite books of the year. And we will chat in the comments below about these. What you guys thought of them, what were your favorites, and all of that stuff. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video.